Hope you all had a good weekend. So, what are we doing here tonight? So, this product that I was going to run some streams of is called Into the Unknown. This was originally it was a Kickstarter that Pacesetter Games did. I don't know if they did that last year. Obviously, I didn't get in on the Kickstarter, but clearly it got funded because I'm holding it. But I don't know where exactly I discovered this. I think I saw it maybe on Instagram or Twitter or somewhere. Anyway, I wasn't able to get to GaryCon this year. My son Arthur was just born, and so wasn't able to make it. But if any of you know Dave in the community, he was going, and so I saw the Pacesetter Games people were going to be there. So I said, "Wait, would you pick this up for me?" Yeah, so he picked this up for me, Into the Unknown. Actually, not this, because I bought the same thing twice, basically. I had him buy it for me, but it was the 5th edition version. There's 3 versions of this that you can pick up. One is, they've got, it's all the same story. It's the same stuff, same illustrations, everything on the inside, just different, rule system. So, there's the 5th edition. This is the basic expert rules set. And then they also have swords and sorcery. But I decided, once I looked at it, I had the 5th edition when I looked at it, and I was like, you know what? This is very much a classic, kind of old school kind of feel story. So like, yeah, if they got the basic expert rules thing, I'm going to get it. I will order it from their website then. And, it'll be an opportunity for me to like get back into it. It's been a long time since I've used basic expert, and I want to, but I've kind of fallen in love with old school essentials, but haven't had an opportunity to really run a campaign or anything like that. But I'm planning to. I want to later this year. I want to get into like kind of a hex crawl sort of open sandboxy kind of campaign. I still have to work on that, but I figured this, if I ran this in basic expert or old school essentials, it could be good practice for getting into the groove of some of those processes that are very much different than 5e, which we mostly play on the channel. Anyway, so that's what I'm going to be. This is the basic expert one I'm going to be using. But along with it, at least when Dave picked up the adventure, they gave him this for free. This is just like kind of like a history and lore book. It's got some custom monsters as well as some custom like races and classes, and so it's also got like kind of a little bit of a gazetteer of some of the like cities and villages. I've got the map. My backdrop here for the stream is the map of the world. I wasn't able to get all of it on there, but it's pretty close to, it's probably like 70% of the map. So what I was thinking we would do tonight, just to kind of introduce what this is, and I don't have like a regular schedule for it yet. I imagine I'm gonna do these probably like Sunday nights. Yeah, so I thought maybe we could read some of the history and the lore stuff from here, and then move right into building a character in Old School Essentials. I got some of the PDFs and things like that I'll throw up on the screen so you can kind of see some of the stuff that I'm reading, so you can kind of follow along. And my goal with all of this, like as I'm playing it, not just tonight, but like in the actual gameplay part of it, is I'll throw up polls every now and again because I'll need help making decisions. Whoever this character is that we build, you can help make some of the decisions and kind of help guide this character through the story. So I thought that'd be kind of fun. Throw on some chill music and just kind of hang out. So if you've got any questions about any of this along the way, feel free to throw them into the chat. I guess the other thing I was going to mention about this little kind of side project here I'm doing is I do plan. I've been buying some toys for the table, some Dwarven Forge terrain. I've got some like miniatures that I've been picking up, and so I fully intend, with all of the maps in this book, to like build out those dungeons so that we've got kind of like the set piece too. So I think that'd be kind of fun. So I think it's time we just crack open the history book here. So one of the things here, you see this like kind of goofy character on the overlay. This is Alfie Fitz. He is a gnome lore master, historian of the world of Farrador. Yeah, that's Alfie. So he's sort of the guy. There's a little forward here by him that I'll read, and he's kind of the one that's supposedly like guiding you through the history book here. So here it is, Chapter 1, Farrador History. It seems we have a scholar wishing to dive deeper into the lore and known knowledge that Farrador has to offer, I see. Excellent. You have come to the right place, friend. Here in this tome, written by yours truly, I will give you insight into how this land was created, what is here now, and what resources you can use to your advantage before venturing into the unknown. That's the name of the adventure, friend. While some of the secrets of Farrador are kept within Farrador's library, I will do my best to note all the information that you shall need before you set out on your next quest. Without further ado, let's get to learning. Yours truly, Alfie Fitz. And then the next page here is you get the map that you see on the screen there. And then the next chapter, Chapter 2, Farradorian Lore. We shall start where any good story does, the beginning. The land of Farrador is relatively new compared to the other realms of Dagmor. Many of the known realms were founded due to their tether to an elemental plane. The land of Boldar is tethered to the plane of fire, Glacius to the plane of ice, Celestian to the Fae, for example. Farrador, however, is relatively mundane compared to the others. It was just an uninhabited land until the great adventurer and explorer, Grimlon I, ventured past the maleficent mountains of Mog Boldar to become the first person to step foot within Farrador's borders. The story of Grimlon is the story of Farrador's founding. Hello. Hey, Isaac, welcome. We're just getting started. I was just kind of like explaining what we're doing, and we're just digging into some of the lore of the world of Farradon. So the story of Grimlon I. The deep red autumn trees swayed back and forth in the wind. Back and forth. Aside from the rustling of aging leaves brushing against one another, all was quiet. Suddenly, a crackle rang through the ears of a young boy and his older sister. The young boy's face filled with glee. He instantly looked to his older sister for guidance and noticed one single finger over her lips to hush his ecstatic emotion. The young boy settled and reached to his back to find a single arrow resting within his quiver. He slowly and quietly knocked his sole arrow within his small recurve bow and scanned the thick forest for the cause of the crackle. His eyes soon spotted a small wolf. However, this wolf was not one often seen. The obvious factor was that it was a simple pup, though not a generic forest wolf often seen in rural Thalon. No, this pup had a thick, icy blue hide shining as if icicles were descending to meet the heat of the earth. Slightly puzzled, the young boy took a deep breath and focused. He counted in his head. 1, 2, 3, and let the arrow go to soar through the air, as if guided by a celestial hand. A second later, the pair of children heard a loud thud. They peeked and noticed that the arrow had flown slightly high, missing the strange, exotic wolf altogether. The young boy, still holding his recurve bow, shifted his eyes back to the pup, where he was met with an icy stare. A shiver ran down the boy's back, as if the wolf itself had brushed up against him. For a moment, they held the connection. Then the wolf dashed away with great haste. Seconds later, the boy's older sister tugged on his arm and whispered, "Let's go, before it comes back with more." The pair jumped to their feet and raced back home. Grimlon's encounter with the exotic beast of the forest sent the young boy into an academic spiral. He begged his father to extend his fishing trade route to Baytide, where the longest standing library in the Thalon stood. A library even older than the capital's. His father agreed, but only if Grimlon could nearly double his efforts to pay for the extra time away from home. Out the door little Grim went to catch as many fish as his cart could hold. Some father, huh? About a month later, Grimlon's father held up his end of the promise and took him to Baytide. The journey was relatively uneventful on the busy trade roads, and they found themselves arriving 18 days after setting out from their hometown of Milford. Once in Baytide's library, Grimlon rushed to the section regarding magical and fantastic guides on adventuring. His father, a retired ranger, had told him of great adventurers, but Grimlon had yet to meet one. He read story after story about great wizards searching for lost magical artifacts, of barbarians taking on hordes of orcs, and of warlocks selling their souls for an extra bit of power. However, none was as interesting as the section on rangers. Grimlon's father rarely spoke of his adventures. He would only say, "I will tell you when you are older." Reading about these other great rangers caused Grimlon's mind to wander back to his encounter in the forest. But after hours of searching through monster tomes, adventurers' guides, and scholarly scrolls, Grimlon found nothing on this wolf of the winter. Nevertheless, he discovered a passion within himself to become a ranger. During their journey home, his father revealed to Grimlon that he was indeed once a ranger, and that if this was what the boy truly wanted, he would train him. Grimlon was elated. This would be his one true chance to travel the world and continue his family name with honor. Grimlon trained from the ages of 14 to 18, during which time his father taught him to use the bow and the sword, and how to track, forage, and hunt. They also reviewed different types of humanoid monsters the boy might someday encounter. These included gnolls, orcs, goblins, kobolds, and yes, even humans. His father took him on excursions throughout Thalon to do small but heroic quests for the common folk of the realm. Grimlon's older sister often accompanied them on these missions. However, she was drawn to heal the sick and wounded of the realm. She finally left for a more tropical southern realm to practice her craft soon after Grimlon turned 17. Grimlon's little sister helped her father fish, now as Grimlon's full attention turned to becoming a great adventurer. In return for taking his duties, Grimlon taught his younger sister to use a recurve bow. She was quite the natural. All the while his mother taught at a local school. All was well in Grimlon's life during these years. This time of peace would not last. Every 100 years, as was tradition in Thalon, the leadership of the realm was possibly in dispute. If another family or person saw the current rulers as unfit to lead, they would challenge them. In the past 200 years, the law of the land changed to a vote rather than battle, a step toward a more civilized culture. The Hillshire family had ruled over Thalon for the last 300 years. They were a noble family of humans, with some elves who had married into it. Queen Milla Hillshire was the current ruler. She was 64 years old and drifting into a more elderly state of mind. Her 2 children passed away during her rule, and she was unable to bear any more heirs. This would eventually be the root cause of the peaceful times ending. Normally, rulership would simply fall to the next worthy family member, and the line would continue. However, this time, a challenger presented themselves to the realm. A family by the house name of Dusk Hollow rose to challenge the Hillshires. They had no intention of a vote. They preferred the old ways, and sought to win the crown via battle. The Dusk Hollow family was relatively unknown. Most of the citizens of Thalon knew them only for their owning a successful logging company in the southwest Thalon. This brought the family lordship in the area as well as a few castles to live in. No person saw them as a true threat to the crown. However, the Duskow family harbored a dark secret. Battle sparked like wildfire across all Thalon, with the Dusk Hollows following a very meticulously crafted and strategic plan for taking over towns and villages before laying siege to the capital. Grimlon's family thought little of this. Word had not reached their village before the forces of Dusk Hollow arrived. Grimlon was out in a nearby forest tracking a herd of deer he had been quietly following all morning. This was a normal day for the boy, as he was obsessed with honing his skills. He tracked the deer to a nearby road, often used solely by merchants and travelers. All was normal until he heard voices. He thought little of this and presumed them to be merchants, but as he listened, he realized the danger he had placed himself in. He discerned 4 different voices. The small group was discussing the takeover of Milford, Grimlon's home. The voices battled back and forth on the danger posed by the village. Some noted that there would be few town guards at most, while others said a small village like this would have nothing but common folk begging for strong leadership. One powerful voice mentioned that they better have it under control before the lead man arrived, or it doomed their chances in the militia. Grimlon snuck closer. He figured he knew the forest better than them, so at the worst, he was in no true danger. The boy crept behind a large oak tree just 10 feet from the group. He continued to listen to them bicker about who would take the lead and bring glory to the Dusk Hollow family. Out of nowhere, a strong force kicked Grimlon in the ribcage and sent him flying into the group of these 4 men. He peered up to see each human dressed in leather armor with a black tabard over the top. The symbol on the tabard was a crescent moon with the blood-red eyes split by the moon. A 5th member of this group had found this hiding spot and now stood over Grimlon, grinning. Grimlon quickly broke free from his daze. Faster than a fly buzzing from wall to wall, he grabbed the recurve boy. He grabbed his I'm pretty sure that's a typo, because don't grab the recurved boy. Grab the recurved bow. Knocked an arrow, and fired into the man's knee. The bandit shrieked, and Grimlon leapt to his feet and took off into the forest. Even though he was in great danger, he was calm and collected. He had trained for this moment. Grimlon flawlessly went from cover to cover, taking down 1, 2, 3 of the other members of this tyrannical force. He then quietly slid down to a cairn of rocks built around a small forest stream so he could catch his breath. However, his respite didn't last long. The boy looked up to see a wolf-like humanoid creature sprinting on all 4s towards him. His studies paid off once again, as he discerned this creature to be a werewolf. His stomach dropped. In all his adventures, he had heard only legends of this formidable foe. Grimlon leapt to the top of the cairn and immediately fired 2 arrows at the creature. Both missed as his enemy evaded them. The werewolf leapt at him but missed as Grimlon tumbled off the rock cairn. The boy knew his only path to victory was a battle of wits. He quickly took off deeper into the forest to lure the beast into a trap set for woodland creatures. Grimlon kept firing shots behind him to ward off the beast as he approached his common hunting ground. Once in position on top of this trap, he taunted the creature toward him. The werewolf again sprinted on all 4s towards him, and as the creature leapt, Grimlon once more tumbled away. The beast's right leg landed directly on top of the trap, which caused it to shriek in pain as the steel jaw dug into its tendons. Grimlon let out a cheer, not believing his luck. However, his celebration ran short, as the werewolf halted feigning injury, and tackled him to the ground. The wolf snarled in the boy's face, and for the first time in his life, Grimlon felt the nearing of the end. Death waited for him in the maw of the beast. The young adventurer closed his eyes as the werewolf's jaw ripped down toward him. In the same second, the weight of the beast lifted from his body. He opened his eyes to see another wolf-like creature wrestling with his enemy, though this creature was familiar to him. Grimlon's heart leapt as he recognized the winter wolf as it battled the werewolf. The battle was swift, and the creature Grimlon had seen as a boy defeated the werewolf with ease. Sounds like we got some 3E tumble mechanics going on. I don't know, because it seems like they figured out how the mechanics worked because they were actually tumbling around. I would have just given up and said, okay, I just attack them. I remember hating the grapple rules in 3rd. As the winter wolf stood over the werewolf, Grimlon brought himself to his feet. The shock and awe of the event overwhelmed young Grimlon. Remaining reticent, he held his bow in one hand and an arrow in another. As the wolf turned to him, he felt an unfamiliar feeling, but he did not feel threatened. Rather, he felt quite safe within the area of this majestic beast. With that, he took one step forward toward his unlikely ally. With that step, he remained alert and monitored the wolf's response. The wolf's hungering maw, still dripping with the spoils of its fallen enemy, closed shut. It stepped off the lunar beast and sat. Grimlon's confidence rose. He stuck the single arrow back into his quiver and slung his bow over his shoulder. Still wary, Grimlon approached the wolf. He stretched out his arms and opened his palms to show no threat to the wolf. 15 feet turned into 10, then 5, 3, and finally just one. Just one before the wolf. Still showing no signs of aggression, Grimlon dropped to his knees and stretched his hand to the wolf's maw. The wolf sniffed his palm immediately. Then, only a second later, its ears and muscles relaxed. It nestled its head into young Grimlon's palm, their first step towards companionship. After a few seconds, Grimlon snapped back to reality. If this raiding party was targeting his home, who would be following behind? What if they had to report back? What if reinforcements were already on the way? Who was the lead man? Grimlon leapt to his feet and dashed back home. The wolf of the winter, his new companion, ran beside him. The entire way home, Grimlon could not stop remembering the symbol of the crescent moon, with blood-red eyes split by the moon. Once back in Milford, Grimlon rushed to the local school. He threw the doors open to find the students quietly reading. His gaze rose to find his mother's eyes peering into his soul, icier than the coat of his new companion. After a second, she smiled and rose from her chair. "Back to your reading, children," she called out gracefully. Grimlon walked quickly, yet calmly, to the front of the class. His new companion sat patiently at the front door, just out of sight of the children. This was for the best, Grimlon thought. "Mother, we must evacuate the village now," Grimlon whispered. "Evacuate? Why? What did you see?" "Not what I saw, but what I fought. The Dusk Hollows. They're on their way. I fought some of them. Well, we fought them off. But more are on the way. I heard them," Grimlon explained. "We? Who is we? Never mind that. Fine, but if you're wrong, the parents will have my head for sending their children home during work hours." Grimlon thanked his mother and raced for the river. The Huron River streamed through Milford and powered the town's mill. He dashed around his companions following, and eventually he found his father and sister. Grimlon called out to the rest of his family. "Father! Anna!" They both turned with a slight shock. "Don't you have twigs to battle out in the woods?" Now. Not now, with the wit. I don't have time to explain, but the Dusk Hollow force is on its way. I fought some off, but... A guttural shriek from the village center cut off Grimlon's story. Grimlon made eye contact with his father, and the trio and the wolf took off toward the source of the scream. They arrived a moment later, where they found nearly 20 soldiers marching into town, led by a soldier in leather armor with a black tabard. The symbol presented on the tabard was a crescent moon with blood-red eyes split by the moon, just like the symbol worn by the ruffians in the woods. The leader also wore a helmet made of a werewolf's head. Grimlon's spine shivered as he scanned the approaching threats. "Anna, help me find Mom," his father said, then turned and tossed Grimlon a rock. "Grim, do what you can and slow them down." Grimlon caught the rock and nodded, then took off behind the small buildings to gain a side view of the militia marching in. He knew just what to do with the rock. His father had taught him a thing or two about enhancing his ranger abilities with magic. Grimlon found the proper vantage point on a roof just a moment later. The militia was nearly 100 feet from the village. He waited for the right moment as they approached. One mistake, and his people were doomed to a life of tyranny. When the soldiers were within 20 feet of the roof, Grimlon threw the stone at the foot of the leader and called out an incantation of the earth. As the rock landed, the earth at the enemy's feet erupted, spawning a giant wall of rock that encircled the militia and cased them in a small pen, as if they were cattle waiting for slaughter. "We did it!" Grimlon called out to his wolf companion, waiting patiently on the ground. Grimlon slid off the roof and snickered at the sound of panic from the small force. He raced back to the town to find chaos ensuing. Villagers were fleeing their homes and rushing toward the tree line. Business owners were panicking and boarding up the doors and windows to deny unwanted entry. Priests were praying that the gods intervene in this time of need. Disarray quickly overcame the town. One commanding voice instantly took control of the panic. "Enough! Everyone, enough! Meet on the South Road. We're stronger together." Anna's voice roared from the school steps. The townsfolk turned confused for a moment. They were certainly not expecting a child to lead them. But a few audibly agreed and moved toward the south. A few turned into 10, which turned into 20, which turned into most of the village, following Anna down the south road. Grimlon took up a position at the back of the horde with his wolf. As the last few families crossed through the village center, the Dusk Hollow army broke free. A massive gap broke off the earthen wall and allowed for the militia to stream out. Most of the soldiers took off toward the town to capture those who remained, but a small squadron, led by the wolf-helmed leader, dashed toward the exodus of villagers. Grimlon turned and fired an arrow directly at the lead men. As it soared, it broke apart, spawning a spider's web that flew toward the soldiers. The lead men and 2 soldiers rolled away, but the webbing ensnared 4 others. Grimlon grinned as he repositioned himself for another shot. The 2 soldiers took off towards the citizens of the Mistwood, as the leadman sprinted towards Grimlon. The young ranger fired 2 arrows at the renegade leader, but he dexterously wove between them in mid-air. Grimlon yelled for the wolf to head off the 2 soldiers, and it took off immediately towards them. Grimlon ducked behind a home off the south road. He looked between the front and back windows to get a view of the leadman. As he peered into the window, he heard a thud on the roof. A second later, the leadman slid off the top and landed beside Grimlon. He quickly slashed at the boy's feet, but Grimlon rolled away just in time. Grimlon dashed back towards the eastern part of town, away from his people. 10 feet into this dash, he scooped a pile of dirt from the earth mid-roll and cast it to the ground. Behind each of his steps, the earth melded into sand, making the terrain difficult to move through. The leadman's pace was cut nearly in half. As Grimlon pulled away, he gazed back towards his people. His father, Anna, and the wolf were controlling the fight, so he went on with his own battle. Once again, Grimlon fired 2 arrows behind him, one sword wide, but one slashed through the upper arm of the leadman. Quickly, the leadman retaliated by casting a dagger towards the young ranger. Grimlon was caught, unaware, but still dodged the fatal attack. He dove to the right, and the dagger only sliced across the side of his chest. He tumbled back to his feet and raced towards the group for support. The leadman's pace quickened, however, and he caught up to Grimlon just as he returned to the group. Grimlon drew his sword to meet the leadman's attack. Back and forth they battled, each landing an equal number of minor blows. Shortly after, Anna dealt a final blow to the 2 soldiers rushing at her. Anna and their father took off to regroup with the villagers while the wolf dashed back to Grimlon's side. The leadman took a leap back to defend a pounce attack from the Wolf of Winter. That freed Grimlon to dash away from his target, firing arrows as he went. One hit the hand of the leadman, but the other soared overhead. The leadman fell to one knee. Behind him, his squadron of soldiers burst from the town. Grimlon commanded the wolf to retreat with him. The legion rushed towards him. It was too much for even the most fearless warrior to handle. As they dashed back to their people, Grimlon looked back at the leadman, who was rising to his feet. As he did, long, black, flowing hair emerged from the werewolf helmet. The leadman raised a hand in a fist, and the onrushing army halted. The leadman proceeded back toward the center of the town. Confused, Grimlon caught up with the fleeing villagers. Yeah, Wolf of Winter is MVP, it would seem. Can we create a doggo character? The addition of the wolf even further gives it the Game of Thrones treatment. Once the refugees reached a safe distance to rest, they broke out into a debate. Some wanted to wrap back around to the capital for refuge. Some preferred to cut east to the coastal cities for shelter or passage out. One called for them to travel south to Glacius, an Arctic realm of freezing winds. Grimlon's father chimed in to agree with the last suggestion. The Dusk Hollows wouldn't dare venture into the cold. Plus, if they were converging on our town, gods know how many of the villages surrounding us have already been taken. South is our best option here. The crowd continued to debate among themselves. A moment later, Grimlon added, Day Point is just on the other side of the border. All the patrol was sent to fight in the war. We can make it across before they come back with more. The crowd started to buy into that argument. Half a moment later, and the refugees once again moved south towards Glacius, a land that stretched far through the center of Dagmor. Its pale contents were nothing but blizzards and Arctic air. Once a land as green as Thalon, magical experiments gone wrong sent the realm into a permanent winter. Few settlements remained, and lucky for the citizens of Milford, Day Point still stood strong near the southern border. Through the border, the people went. Immediately after they left Thalon and entered Glacius, the temperature plummeted, and snow buffeted them. Grimlon's father continued to lead the pack, urging the refugees to push through to Day Point. After about 15 minutes at a moderate jog, the people found themselves crossing through the gates into Day Point. Behind them, those very gates shut, and a small squad of soldiers surrounded them. Halt! Not any further, the captain of the guard called out. Who are you and what is your business here? We come from Thalon, Milford, Grimlon's father called out. We have nowhere to go. Please, take pity. Were you followed? No, we were not, Grimlon cried out. Please lead us in to find shelter. Very well. Enter the circle building to your right, please, the captain concluded. The citizens of Milford, around 200 strong, rushed into a very large dome-shaped hut made of differing exotic furs. Once inside, everyone was overcome by the warmth almost immediately. Some dropped to their knees and attempted to finally rest and catch their breath. Others took a moment to collect themselves. The captain of the guard then spoke up. People of Milford, you come during a dire time. We will likely evacuate come tomorrow's nightfall. The elemental plane of fire that is bound to Mogbuldar to the east has latched onto Glacius. The fiery core will consume our land soon, leaving nothing but volcanic waste. I unfortunately urge you to stay the night and leave in the morning. With that announcement, the captain, an elderly elven man, turned to leave. Grimlon pleaded for his attention. What if the core's reach could be disconnected? I've read about this in a tome from the Baytide Library. If we can locate the source, we can expel the connection by defeating the warden it spawned from the other side. Plane of fire? Probably a fire giant. Maybe a red dragon. What's the worst that could happen? How many from your tribe can hold their own? The captain asked. A good few. It hardly matters. If we are pushed out of here, we have nothing to return to, except an army of not-so-friendly werewolves, Grimlon said. Very well. Have your fighting meet us at the building across from here in 10 minutes. We'll set you up with winter gear before we set out. This had better work, the captain said as he retreated toward the armory. Wow, talk about nailing a persuasion check. The guy's like just met him and he's like, you want to go kill a dragon? Like, all right. Sounds like fun. The other guards instructed the citizens to wait in the hall where it was warm and comfortable. The fighters, on the other hand, were made up of Grimlon, his father, his sister Anna, and 4 other men who could wield a sword. They would not risk the lives of anyone else who could fight in case the plan failed. They'd need some to stay behind and assist the village's retreat from Thalon to Mythalar. Quickly, a squadron from Glacius and the heroes of Milford set out to find the source of Mogbuldar. Earlier that day, scouts had reported a large plot of land melting to the southeast. The land boiled up, reworking the earth from below. This was their destination. After an hour of braving the blizzard, the troop came upon the source of the fiery corruption. A large crater had formed in the midst of the Arctic wasteland. Grimlon felt the heat and knew that his winter gear was no longer necessary in this harsh climate shift. Grimlon doffed his hide jacket and motioned for Anna, his father, and the wolf to follow him to the crater's ledge. He then pointed for the Day Point and Milford soldiers to circle around to the other side. The crater was nearly 300 feet across, so while they traveled, Grimlon surveyed the area. A look of pride worn by Grimlon's father gave him all the confidence he needed to lead this mission. A meticulous look into the crater revealed no activity. A blazing red orb rested on the floor at the center of the crater. Grimlon's heart leapt. If the warden had not yet spawned, simply destroying the orb would save the frozen realm. Without hesitation, and not waiting for the soldiers to reach the other side, Grimlon leapt forward and slid down the crater to its core. Carefully, he crept towards the scorching sphere. He looked back to the rim and motioned for his family to follow. As Grimlon turned, Anna screamed, "Grim! Get back!" A burst of magma erupted from the orb. Grimlon rolled backward and felt the searing pain of lava catch his forearm mid-roll. He dropped his bow and grasped at his forearm. His eyes veered from his burn up to where the orb once stood. What took its place was a sight that he had never seen before. A very large, molten figure, larger than a hill giant, formed in front of his eyes into what looked like a shambling mound of pure lava. His heart sank further than the crater's core. Redirecting his attention, the young ranger grasped his bow and retreated up the crater back to the rim. The attention of the soldiers on the other side of the crater's rim was now fixed on the lava creature. They charged down the crater's slope toward the fiery foe. The soldiers met the creature in hand-to-hand combat. Dodging, rolling, and shielding themselves from the lava worked well for moments. Grimlon and his family fired arrows into the beast, but these did little damage to the foe. His wolf whimpered by Grimlon's side, and he commanded it to stay put. He would not lose his companion on this day. The vigor of the combatants quickly wore thin. Two were severely injured after just moments of fighting, and their spirits began to wither. Grimlon called for them to stand and fight. There was nothing beyond the border his family came from. In his call to arms, a feeling of formidable strength came over him. Not just mental or emotional, but seemingly physical. Grimlon felt his skin thicken. He glanced down to the spot on his forearm singed by lava, and what he saw surprised him. His skin grew thick and rough like the earth. A mixture of stone and soil of the earth quickly encased him. He drew a short sword and bashed his arm with the bottom of the hilt. He barely felt the impact. His mind began to race. Grimlon called out to his father and sister to keep firing. With the short sword in his right hand, he drew a long knife from his belt and rushed the enemy. As he sprang into action, the wolf whimpered again, far louder than last time. Grimlon once again ordered it to stay put. The ranger got in a few clean slashes before the abomination noticed its presence. The beast swung a molten limb around to strike at Grimlon. He was forced back a few feet by the attack, but he wasn't even burned by the blow. Confidence swelled within him, and he delivered a flurry of slashes to the monstrosity. However, he quickly realized these mundane strikes meant very little to this enemy. Panic swelled as the fight wore on. More soldiers were seriously injured, and Grimlon's earthen hide began to break down. The soldiers had hoped to wear down the foe, but it seemed to have no effect. Not long after that, the last fighters remaining were the captain of Day Point, Grimlon, and his family. All seemed lost. Grimlon's mind raced. Would they flee to brave Mogboldar? Would they return home and fight for their land? His strikes became less impactful as his thoughts scattered. A moment later, his distracted mind allowed a fiery limb to bash him to the ground. He scrambled backward, his armor now nearly deteriorated. His father called for him to flee, but Grimlon ignored this plea. Instead, he rose to his feet to once more face down his foe. He called on whatever god, whatever spirit, or universal force granted him the earthen strength to empower him, yet he felt nothing. The molten abomination struck down at him once more. Grimlon had calculated its fighting pattern by now, but just as he rolled this time, the creature halted. A great howl was heard by all on the battlefield. Or was it a guttural shriek? Grimlon noticed the monstrosity freezing over from one side. He rolled to that side of the beast and found his wolf companion letting out an icy breath. The combatants remained vigilant for a few seconds more, but all soon realized that the wolf's freezing breath had halted the creature. Grimlon empowered his body and mind one last time, causing the earth below them to rumble. This tremor broke the icy prison holding the amalgamation and caused it to fall to the ground. As it crashed upon the crater, it shattered into countless pieces. Victory was finally upon them. Grimlon spoke softly to his pup. So, that is what the whimpering was all about. The captain of Day Point limped over to Grimlon, who was quickly joined by his father and sister. The captain said, I was beginning to wonder if your winter wolf had found his voice yet. My what? Questioned Grimlon. Your winter wolf! Surely you know of the beast's nature, no? It is quite simple. See them as advancements from the direwolf family. Excellent in the Arctic. I take it you've never seen it use its chilling breath before today. Must be only 4 or so months old. Strange you came upon one. The frost giants in the mountains have generally bred them and raised them. Often they can speak common, but this one may not have been around long enough to have learned. Chaotic beasts in nature, but this pup seems to have a good temperament within it. Keep him close, replied the captain. Wow, I had no idea. I guess you're more than what I thought, though, hey boy? The wolf sat and peered deep into Grimlon's eyes. Most common folk would feel overcome with dread, but the boy felt warm and safe with his companion. Grimlon continued. I'd better find a name then, if you're going to stick around. Atlas, called out Anna. What makes you say that? Replied Grimlon. Well, he's saved your behind more than once now. Seems like he's holding you up, as if you were the weight of the world. Grimlon chuckled and said, Good one. I like that. Atlas it is. We better get back. These soldiers need healing, and we won't survive long out in the cold at night. The trip back was far slower than getting to the crater in the first place, as the wounded traveled at a slower pace due to their injuries. However, after a long, hard journey, the squadron found themselves back at Day Point. The victory festivities were non-existent. The citizens of Milford were exhausted from the day, and the fighters were depleted of any remaining energy. In the morning, a decision had to be made. The only lands accessible from Glacius were Thalon and Mog Boldar. Thalon was overrun by werewolf menace as the Dusk Hollows, and Mog Boldar was a land of strife and turmoil. The dwarves and orcs who resided there had been engaged in a seemingly never-ending battle, a power struggle to hold dominion over the land. Most logical people avoided that place. However, Grimlon had heard of free land on the other side of Mog Boldar, land that his people could live on and be free again. However, he knew that few of his people would willingly travel across these treacherous lands. He first spoke with his family about his plan. His mother immediately told him to be silent. She would not have her son enter such dangerous lands. His father, on the other hand, knew what his son could handle. If he and his companion could fight off a monstrosity from the elemental plane of fire, sneaking past some orcs and dwarves should prove little consequence. The captain of Day Point interrupted their meeting. He offered Day Point to those who wished to stay. Some of the citizens of Milford took him up on the offer, but others wished to follow their people to this new land. Knowing that they would have to traverse Mog Boldar, he offered the little information he had to share. It is rare that we have any encounters with the orcs or dwarves, but I can tell you that you are better off allying yourself with the Ashen-forged dwarves. Rumors from the land say that the orcs are savage and relentless in their power-crazed mission to take over the realm. If you can reason with the dwarves, they may offer protection across the land. I would send a few at most to do this. An entire population may come across as a threat, offered the captain. It is settled then, Grimlon said. Atlas and I will travel to Mogbuldar and find these dwarves. Shouldn't be too hard. Their tracks should be distinguishable enough. If I'm not back in a week, consider Day Point your new home. This is ridiculous, his mother cried out. You're still a boy. A talented one, but a boy nonetheless. I am not a boy. I've handled everything else so far. I can handle this, Grimlon replied. Mom, he's right. Plus, he'll have me, Anna interjected. I'll what? Questioned Grimlon. You really don't think Dad and I have been fishing, do you? I knew you were thick, but I didn't think that weird rock shield got into your brain, too. Their father interjected and said, Anna, watch it now. She's right, though. You three should go. You can travel quick and light. I was never deployed to Mogbuldar, but I know one ranger who was. She spoke highly of Agner, the Dwarven King. Tell him you come from the Order of Celestial Knights. He should see reason with that information. I'll stay here and set up living space and provisions for our people. If you come across any threat, leave immediately. Our journey does not end with their conflict. Oh, be safe, the both of you, their mother cried out as she embraced the pair. Look after each other. We love you, Mom, Grimlon replied. I'll make sure Anna comes back safe. You will? Don't forget who saved you from that swarm of wasps a few weeks ago. You screamed like a girl when you bumped that nest, Anna sarcastically replied. Oh, leave it alone, would you? I don't like bugs. Grimlon the Great, fearless in life but petrified of pests, replied Anna mockingly. Grimlon rolled his eyes and began packing his travel bag. Anna did the same after belting out a laugh so loud that the denizens of Day Point halted their daily happenings. An hour later, the trio set out for Mogbuldar. But Mama, I want to go on an adventure. All the other kids are doing it. Mama, ooh, didn't mean to make you cry. I need to go to Mogbuldar tonight. Carry on. The road to the mountain pass leading to the volcanic was uneventful. No sane person would venture along Glacius's path. But after a day of moderately paced travel, the trio came upon the pass to Mogbuldar. Not long after entering the volcanic wasteland, Grimlon picked up on some tracks he believed belonged to the dwarves. Although he did not have hands-on experience with tracking, Grimlon had often asked newcomers to Milford to step off the beaten path for a moment, so that he could study their different tracks. To him, these tracks were quite smaller than those of a human-sized footprint. Seemingly put, it was the best lead that they had. Grimlon, Anna, and Atlas continued following the tracks deeper into the new realm. Surprisingly, it was relatively void of life. The life forms that they had found within the reach were variations of what one would find in a more traditional realm, like Phalon. Elk with reddish coats and birds with orange feathers were just two examples. They seemed to be eating a strange vegetation growing from the ground, maybe a fungus. Best identify that later, Grimlon thought to himself. Not an hour later, the tracks began to fade, then become more prominent than ever. Just before a small pass leading north, he found remnants of a battle. A mishmash of large and small tracks, tattered weapons thrown about, and even stains of blood on the earthen ground. Wonder what happened here, Anna called out. Couldn't have been good, Grimlon replied. Seems fresh, too. We should move on. Just as his words left his lips, a strong force constricted his body. Quickly, he looked down to find a bolo wrapped around him. The action was so quick that he could barely comprehend what was happening. He attempted to cry out to his sister and companion, but he noticed they were already lying unconscious on the ashy earth. Grimlon looked up to find an extraordinarily large orc leaping off a boulder to his right. The orc muttered some words under her breath, and Grimlon felt consciousness slowly slipping away as he crumpled to the earth. The young ranger awoke in a strange location. He opened his eyes, his circumstance forgotten for a moment. He looked around quite groggy, and found himself inside a cavern chamber. After a few seconds of confusion, he jolted upright, panic swelling inside him. "No need to be afraid," called out a calm yet brutish voice. Grimlon looked around in terror. As he did, he noticed Atlas and Anna still lying unconscious next to him. His eyes soon focused on the form of his captor as she spoke. "This is not the ideal introduction, but my name is Urzul," the female orc said. "I am the matriarch of our humble clan." "A clan of savages that capture children?" replied Grimlon. "We both know that you are more than just a child, young ranger." "I'm sorry," Grimlon replied, quite confused. "The mountains have spoken of your arrival for some time now. Our scouts noticed your entrance and followed you to the pass," Urzul explained. "As I received word, we found a small deployment of ashen-forged dwarves moving on your location. I had no time to explain, so I thought a simple sleep spell would do the trick." "I have no business with you," Grimlon replied, a hint of anger building in him. "Release us so we can be on our way." "Releasing you is in accordance with negligence. However, it is not our way to keep prisoners not involved with the siege on our homeland." "So we can leave?" "Let me show you around first. We'll be back before your family wakes." With that, Urzul stood and motioned for Grimlon to exit the chamber. Reluctantly, the ranger followed. It was immediately clear that they were within a mountain or deep underground. Tunnels carved out of the earth intersected quite often, leading to a large gathering area. Barracks, training chambers, and more. Grimlon lost count of the force's size after about 300 orcs. This was certainly not a situation the trio could fight their way out of, and by the looks of it so far, it was unnecessary. After about 10 minutes of walking, the pair came across what seemed to be a dead end. A small platform set off the floor was straight ahead. Grimlon looked up to see a hollow column leading straight up. "Step on the lift, please," Urzul asked kindly. With hesitance, Grimlon stepped onto the offset rock platform at the end of the hallway. Once secure, Urzul concentrated and muttered some words in Orcish that the young man did not understand. When she finished, the platform began to float up the empty column above them. Grimlon could not identify how high they were, but it felt quite significant. Suddenly, the lift came to a halt. Urzul motioned for Grimlon to step off and proceeded down the passageway. The pair walked for a moment and then took a left. After another moment, they took a right. Immediately within Grimlon's sight was a familiar yet foreign sight. Hundreds of dwarves were in the chamber, some lounging, some walking about, some exercising, and many snoring away in the dark underground cavern within the mountain. Grimlon's mind wandered back to his short time as a refugee in the snowy halls of Day Point. "They're your prisoners?" Grimlon inquired. "We prefer to see them as temporary guests. Boldar's code prevents our people from causing unnecessary death within war," Urzul responded. "Luckily enough, we captured most of our enemies. The others, well, they were given proper burials by their people." "How do I know that this is not an act that these prisoners aren't simply lambs waiting for the slaughter. You may believe what you like, young ranger. If something seems impossible, you are missing something. And with that, Urzol motioned for Grimlon to follow her back to the lift. Once there, the pair stepped back onto the lift. Again, the platform ascended to another. Grimlon could see that this led back outside. Urzol led Grimlon down the passageway to the outside world. He found himself in a small opening in the steep mountain. It looked like some sort of shrine. Directly in the center of the opening was a brilliant statue made of obsidian. An orc warrior wielding 2 axes. To Grimlon, the unique quality of this statue was that it seemed to have veins. Grimlon walked closer and found small veins of lava coursing through the orc. This is Boldar. Urzol paused, waiting for the boy to fill in his name. Grimlon, he replied softly. Grimlon, meet Boldar, a hero in life and a god in death. Boldar the Undying led our people to victory against the first Ashen Forge invasion. These lands are sacred to our people, and our history speaks of how our clan of orcs came from the elemental plane of fire to find refuge within this mortal world, Urzol explained. Fortunately, our ancestors came across to nothing but war. Boldar prayed to the elemental lords to give him strength in life and death against the Ashen Forge invasion. The lords seemingly granted him his wish, but at great cost. Boldar was able to summon the power of the volcanoes within our land to empower his attacks. One by one, Boldar cut down most of the elite of the Ashen Forge forces at this very spot. That's an interesting origin for orcs, being former natives of a elemental plane. However, the power he was gifted soon overwhelmed him. When the final hack of his axe rings true, he fell and returned to the elemental lords in death. From that moment, our lands have been named Mog Boldar, in memory of our greatest hero. The lava that courses through his veins now represents his influence on our realm. It grows smaller and smaller each day the Ashen Forge invade further. I had no idea, Grimlon replied, softly touching the obsidian Boldar. From your reaction when we met, you see us as savages. This could not be further from the truth. We never engage in combat unless first attacked or provoked. Even then, we aim to capture, not kill. Mog Boldar is a unique and special land to our people, a land the dwarves seek to use for resources and to satisfy their greed. I am not asking you or your people to get involved at this moment, but perhaps a peace negotiation can be made for the future betterment of our clans. Urzol paced over to the walls encasing the mountain shrine. See here. Our sages have tracked our history on these very walls. Recently, I fell into a vision. It showed me a young ranger, his sister, and their animal companion shepherding a new future to the Borderlands. The Borderlands? Grimlon replied in confusion. The land to the east in which you seek. That is our simple name for it, Urzol replied. Grimlon approached the wall and saw a painting on the walls depicting just that. Himself, his younger sister, and Atlas. This is impossible, Grimlon replied. Urzol raised a single eyebrow at the boy. Right. I'm probably missing something, Grimlon accepted reluctantly. This future can come to pass only through the cooperation of our peoples. I will show you the way safely to the Borderlands. In return, I ask you consider an alliance with us. I would recommend a council with the Ashenforge dwarves, but I cannot promise the same treatment as you have been shown here, Urzul explained. Grimlon's mind raced. Would his people believe him? Could they trust these orcs? What if he led them into chains? I need to speak with my sister, Grimlon said. Of course. Let us return. Urzul led Grimlon back down the lift and to the chamber in which he originally awakened. He entered to find Anna eating a bowl of stew and tossing a rock for Atlas to catch. You're back, Anna exclaimed. Yeah, what happened here? Grimlon inquired. Well, I was pretty heated up when I woke up. The guard almost lost a tooth trying to wrangle me in. Once I calmed down, they gave us both a bowl of stew and said you'd be back soon. I wasn't worried. We've been in worse situations than this. Your calmness amazes me sometimes. Grimlon sat next to his sister and explained the encounter with Urzul. The two spoke back and forth for nearly 20 minutes, running through possible scenarios and outcomes of their actions. At the end, they decided that there was no other path than to trust the Boldar orcs. Once decided, they called Urzul to join them. They accepted her offer. However, they requested that she join them to return to Glacius and assist in convincing his people that the orcs could be trusted. Swiftly, Urzul accepted. On the way out, she spoke to a guard to send word to Ingar of her leave. Whoever this Ingnar was, he was in charge for now. Now, a group of 4, Grimlon, Anna, Atlas, and Urzul, raced back to Day Point to meet with his people. As soon as they arrived, an argument broke out among everyone. The Day Point residents were furious that a guest would return with an orc, and the residents of Milford demanded that they chain up Urzul immediately. Jeez. Grimlon and Anna immediately came to Urzul's defense. They both explained their experiences with Urzul and began convincing their people that they could trust her. One Milford resident called out, "How do we know that they are not leading us into a trap?" "Yeah, I've heard stories of these orcs. Savages, all of them," another joined in. "Enough," Anna called out. "You can choose to trust the people who have gotten you this far, or freeze to death in this frozen wasteland." "Oh, no offense meant," she called out while apologizing to the captain of Day Point's guard. Urzul spoke immediately after Anna finished. "I know we are mere strangers, but Mogboldar belongs to the Boldar orcs. It has been our sacred land since we traveled to Dagmor. The Ashenforge have done whatever they can to take it, and my people never ceased in their vigilance to defend it. As Anna mentioned, you can come or stay. No one will force you either way. But if you want to travel to the borderlands, you must come now. My people are setting up an escort as we speak." Urzul immediately left the main hall, where the residents had gathered. It was silent for a moment after her departure. Almost unanimously, chatter began to break out. Grimlon and Anna rejoined their parents. Both of them immediately offered their support. Then the 4 of them separated to convince their people to join them on the journey to the borderlands. Once the 10 minutes passed, a little more than 60% of the citizens had agreed to travel with them to Mogboldor. They set out at once. A squadron of 20 orcs met the refugees at the border. With the dark of night approaching, they moved with haste. Each orc was assigned 5 people to defend if a skirmish broke out between them and the dwarves. Glacius borders Mogboldar to the west. That meant that the company would have to cross a volcanic waste to the eastern border where the borderlands was located. The first half of their travel was rather uneventful and nearly silent. Aside from occasional communication between the orcs in a language that the commoners did not understand. The company spent time on the main road and some in various passes through the mountains. What they did not know was that Ignar, son of Urzol, had been sent to create a diversion. He and a small party of 7 other orcs were feigning an attack on a small encampment of dwarves they had been tracking for a few days. If all went well, the company of Milford residents and orcs should pass through Mogboldar undetected. Unfortunately for them, all did not go well. Complications. Urzol led the company to a small mountain pass. On the other side was a quarter-mile straight shot to the borderlands. Informed of this news, the people of Milford began to lightly cheer before their joy was hushed by the orcs. Almost right after the cheer fell, Urzol heard a familiar voice. "Trap! It's a trap!" hollered her son Ignar from behind them. Urzol turned to see Ignar and his orcs behind them, attempting to catch up. Shocked, Urzol's guard fell for a moment. As if in unison, all eyes turned to Ignar and his orcs, and panic swelled within the company. A loud and guttural scream broke their confusion. Grimlund turned back to find a hand axe wedged into Urzol's left shoulder. With one swift motion, she grabbed the axe and ripped it from her flesh. The young ranger looked ahead to find more than 30 dwarves clad in blackened plate armor charging them. Well, we got time to roll initiative, it seems like. I'm going to have another spotted cow before we get into this action sequence. If you're just stopping by, thanks for hanging out with me here tonight. Just reading some backstory on the world of Farrador as I prepare to create a character and begin play through this little book, Into the Unknown. It's a solo adventure. So something different. Probably start streaming that on Sunday nights is my plan. Probably we'll kick Cephalosk off the channel here for a little bit so I can play this. All right, so they roll initiative. Panic broke out immediately. Common folk bumped into each other as they attempted to huddle behind the orc guards. Swiftly, Ignar and his men came to the front of the company in a defensive formation. They began to chant words in the same foreign language that the guards would occasionally call out. As they chanted, Grimlon, Anna, and Atlas rushed to the front with them. Their parents stayed behind as a last line of defense, if needed. Atlas abruptly halted Grimlon's path forward. "What are you doing? Go!" Grimlon commanded. Atlas's icy blue eyes once again met those of his friend. Grimlon's body began to warm again, an odd feeling to have had before going into battle. However, this time was different. With his mind and body seemingly in harmony, Grimlon felt an icy chill in his hands, a chill one would typically feel when encountering a winter wolf. Atlas's eyes darted from Grimlon's hands back to his eyes, and then the wolf took off to the battle. "Let's go!" Anna cried out. Confused, Grimlon dashed after her and began firing arrows at the dwarven aggressors. The pair stood behind the orcs' defensive formation, which had now been bolstered by the guards who had kept them safe along the path. They climbed up some small boulders to get to a firing angle on the onslaught. Anna took aim first and fired an arrow into the attackers. The arrow stuck into the plate armor of one of the dwarves, but the dwarf never broke stride. Grimlon took aim next. His hands were still freezing, as if he had stuck them into a pile of snow. He pulled an arrow from his quiver and nocked an arrow. As he pulled back, the arrow froze, looking more like an icicle than an arrow. Grimlon glanced at the now frozen arrow and had an idea. He fired the arrow at the feet of the lead dwarf. The icy arrow shattered on impact with the ground and formed an icy patch. The sudden patch of ice caught the dwarves by surprise, and just over half of them slipped and fell to the ground. In an instant, the orcs charged the dwarves. An intense battle broke out, but thanks to the blessing of Atlas, the orcs quickly overwhelmed the dwarves. Shortly after, Grimlon's parents led their people farther down the mountain pass to the opening, and the straight shot to the borderlands. Grimlon, Anna, and Atlas joined Urzul, Ignar, and the remaining orcs. Their triumph did not last long. Another 30 dwarves were charging down the path. However, this time, a rather large dwarf riding a ram was leading them. "Agnar," Urzul said softly, gripping her left shoulder. "We'll stay," Anna responded. "Our parents can lead these people." "No sense in running if we stay in this endless chase," Grimlon chimed in. "Anna, join our warriors from a distance," Urzul said as she took a scroll from a case on her belt. "Grimlon, a quick word." Anna nodded and ran forward with Atlas. Grimlon, who quickly grew impatient at not joining the battle, questioned Urzul about why he had to stay back. "The mountains have not spoken of a hero in some time. They spoke through me to grant a single warrior the might of Boldar," Urzul replied with great haste. "I hoped it would be my son, but I know now that you are the only fighter who can wield the elemental power of fire. Stand still." Grimlon was shocked for a moment, but this was right in line with the madness of the last few days. Urzul opened the scroll and began chanting in that familiar yet foreign language that the orcs spoke. He felt his insides start to burn, as if he had plunged into the hottest volcano in Mog Boldar. Attempting to fight off this feeling, Grimlon fell to his knees and began to pray. Not to any god in particular, but to any person who would hear his call and calm his pain. However, no solace was found. His pain swelled, and his mind began to melt. No thoughts other than the searing pain were to be had. In the emptiness came clarity. Then, Grimlon saw a vision. A single orc warrior stood atop a mountain, engaged in combat with a company of dwarves. The orc hacked and slashed with dual axes as lava erupted from his blades. Swiftly, the orc was victorious, but his power was fading. The orc then turned and made eye contact with Grimlon. "Come, boy," the orc called out. Against his will, Grimlon walked forward. The orc, now resting on one knee, motioned for Grimlon to kneel with him. Once again, their eyes met. Even with no words exchanged, Grimlon understood. The orc warrior finally fell and became one with the mountain. Grimlon came to. He looked up to find Urzul smiling at him. She simply said, "I knew it." Grimlon rose and dashed to join the battle. However, he drew his short sword and long knife instead of his bow. With every step he took, his earthen shield formed over his body, giving him stronger natural armor. With that, he engaged in combat. When he entered the fight, the dwarves seemed to have the advantage. Agnar, king of the Ashenforge, had wounded Ignar soon after their engagement. The rest of the orcs, with no leader, seemed rather uncoordinated. This changed as Grimlon entered the fold. They rallied behind his melee prowess and natural leadership. Grimlon quickly dispatched his first opponent by knocking the dwarf in the side of the head with the hilt of his blade. He turned to find Agnar charging him, still on the back of the ram. Grimlon raised his short sword and brought it down into the earth to create another patch of ice, then tumbled to his right to dodge the ram's charge. The ram slid and fell, but Agnar leapt from his mount and steadied himself with his maul. Grimlon fetched his short sword and engaged his new opponent. Dodging blows from the heavy maul of the Dwarven Lord, Grimlon could not find a strong point of attack that lent itself to a non-killing blow. While on the orcs' soil, he would not spill blood. Back and forth, the pair traded blows. However, it was quickly apparent that the dwarf's skill was beyond what Grimlon had possessed. This became the dwarf's downfall. Agnar grew cocky, crying out insults and mocking Grimlon as the battle tilted in his favor. Unwilling to give in to the insults, Grimlon stayed, focused and patient. When Agnar brought his maul down too aggressively, Grimlon at last saw a weak point underneath the dwarf's chin. The young ranger swung upward with his long knife and drew on the volcanic power of Mog Boldar to empower his strike. His knife, now flowing with the lava of the land, struck Agnar's plate helmet. The blow knocked the dwarf off his feet and onto his back. Grimlon dashed forward and pinned Agnar to the ground with his blades. Noticing the helmet had now melded into the face of the dwarf, he felt some pity. Then, the rage of the ambush filled the young man, and he struck hard down onto the crown of Agnar's head to knock him unconscious. The dwarves scattered once they realized their leader had fallen. Some of the orcs chased after them, but the majority followed Ignar to capture Agnar. They have almost identical sounding names. The rest approached Urzol to await her command. Urzol called out that they all must rally behind the citizens of Milford and see their mission out. At once, the remaining orcs, along with Grimlon, Anna, and Atlas, dashed to reunite with the humans of Thalon. Not long after the company found themselves on the border path to the Borderlands, by now the dark of night had overcome the sky. Urzol finally addressed the company. "People of Boldar, you must return. The dwarves will not linger in retaliation. Prepare for a new phase of our war. I will stay with the humans for a night and return in the morning." The remaining orcs nodded and rushed back to join Ignar. Urzol then led the citizens of Milford to their new home. One last mountain pass stood between them and salvation. After a few moments of walking, salvation indeed came. Although it was dark, the light of the moon illuminated the borderlands beautifully. Healthy green grass rolling fields were before them. Grimlon's heart grew so full that he thought he would explode. At once, all the citizens of Milford began to embrace each other, and let out cheers so joyous that Urzol herself became emotional for a moment. "Wow, the fearless queen smiled," Anna spoke out sarcastically. Urzol's smile grew, and she replied, "I am no queen, young one, just a helping hand to those in need." "Whatever you say, Mountain Queen." Grimlon's family collected in a great hug. They stayed that way for so long that they did not realize that Urzol had sat upon the ground and began to mutter some sort of incantation. A moment later, a translucent door appeared before her. She then rose and spoke once more. "We will stay here for the night. None shall enter unless I allow them. Come, step through." It's like a Leomund's tiny hut. With that, Grimlon stepped through the doorway. What now appeared before him was a sight he had never seen. He found himself in a mansion so large and elegant that he believed his eyes to be deceiving him. He peered to his left and found his father stepping through behind him. Mordenkainen's magnificent mansion. "These orcs are full of surprises, aren't they?" said Grimlon's father. "Yeah, I guess they are," Grimlon replied. There was enough room in this mystical mansion for all the citizens of Milford, and then some. Spectral servants appeared as well to tend to the injured and provide food for all. Each family was designated a room for the night, and after some mild celebrations, everyone went to sleep. Grimlon awoke before anyone in his family had returned, and he went to the foyer to find Urzol sipping tea. "Ah, you're finally up. Tea?" Urzol offered a cup to the ranger. "No, thank you. I prefer coffee," Grimlon replied. As he spoke, he seemed to speak those words into existence. A spectral servant appeared with a fresh cup of coffee. "I could get used to this," Grimlon chuckled. So could I, Urzul replied. Unfortunately for us both, this will not last. Your people should leave soon. I must return to the mountains. Thank you for everything. I am sorry for not trusting you. You had the right not to. I hope our show of good faith will lend us aid in the future. Urzul took another sip of her tea. Capturing Agner may swing the tide in our direction for a good while, but this endless war has simply shifted directions for the time being. Take your people northeast of here. You may find an old friend of mine. You have my word, once we build a life and transport other refugees from Thalon, you will have our blades, Grimlan stated with pride. Urzul once again smiled at the boy. The pair sat in silence, finishing their morning beverages. Moments later, citizens of Milford began to trickle into the foyer with their belongings, ready for what the day would bring them. Once all had arrived, they thanked Urzul. Some even apologized for their lack of trust. After speaking with Grimlan's family one last time, Urzul led the people out of the mystical mansion, and the translucent door shimmered away. They said their goodbyes, and Urzul turned back towards Magbuldar and left the company of humans. Grimlan informed his people that Urzul mentioned an old friend to the northeast. This being their most reliable aid, they headed out to venture deeper into the borderlands. After half a day of traveling through the rolling hills and grass pastures, the company came upon a curved mountain wall. However, what stood out was a rounded passageway leading deeper into the mountains. Great, more rocks, Anna called out sarcastically. Grimlan and his family laughed at this remark, but after they stopped, the ranger couldn't help but feel a pull to this passageway. I am going to look inside. At the very least, it's cover to sleep in at night. The rest of his people took this as an opportunity to rest, and Grimlan headed out alone for the pass. He found himself in a large carved tunnel that split left and right. Whenever he and his friends were presented with a fork in an unfamiliar path, they had a saying, "Always go left." So Grimlan proceeded to the left. Wow, where have I heard that before? The path wound around in a semicircle that brought him to the end of the passageway after only a moment of walking. The tunnel led back outside to the other side of the mountains. Once again, his heart skipped a beat, and he rushed forward to the grassy glade on the other side. As Grimlan passed through the mountainous archway that led outside, he felt his vision blur and his legs halt. He blinked once and found himself in an unfamiliar location. He stood on top of a mountain peak overlooking the borderlands. His eyes darted around, and he quickly noticed an elderly man in tattered robes sitting down, looking over the glade on the other side of the pass. "Come, sit," the elderly man called out. Grimlan approached with haste. The elder was completely bald with a small gray beard. His orange, tattered robes looked to be in the same shape as the man, aging and frail. "Are you Urzul's friend?" Grimlan asked the man. "Yes, I knew her long ago. Good to know she is still alive," the man replied. Grimlan then obliged the man and sat next to him. "You have done well for yourself and your people, young ranger. You have confirmed our suspicions that you will do well as warden of Farrador," the man said softly. "The what of what? Who is we?" Grimlan asked. "This great land you have referred to as the Borderlands is called Farrador. Long has it been since any species of humanoid has called it home. However, time calls for it to be considered a home once more. Farrador, while inhabited, must claim a warden, a keeper of the land who preserves it from being overwhelmed by the forces of evil." Grimlan pondered this information for a moment before the man interrupted his thoughts. "My name is Monk Ryo. I have stood watch over Farrador from this very spot for, well, I am not sure how long, but it certainly has been ages." Monk Ryu continued. "For the who, It is not important at the moment. Your instincts have gotten you this far. Do you believe me to be honest, Grimlan? Rather confused that this monk knew his name, Grimlan continued to ponder. He could feel that in his gut that Ryu was being honest. However, he was still cautious. You understand how insane this sounds, right? Grimlan proposed. Ryu gave a chuckle before replying, What about your journey has been sane, boy? Remember, if something seems impossible, you are missing something. These familiar words rang in Grimlan's mind like a bell. Now confirming the tie to Urzul, Grimlan continued to speak. What shall I do now? You must detach your tether to the mortal world to become what you were meant to be. This is the path to true leadership and confirmation of your elemental nature, Ryu responded. What do you mean? Grimlan asked. Meditate with me, Monk Ryu responded. I will show you. Grimlan glanced to his left to find the monk's eyes closed, and Grimlan did the same. After a brief few seconds, Grimlan's mind began to wander. He saw his people resting below, eating rations provided by the orcs, a river emptying into the great sea, with some sort of settlement residing upon it. And lastly, he saw a magnificent city in the large grassy glade below him, and Ryu at the base of the mountains. The culmination of these visions lifted Grimlan's body, forcing him to stand. Swirling around him was a magical force greater than any that he had experienced before. His light armor began to shift and meld into his body. A moment later, Grimlan was clad in green leather armor, with a cloak tied together with a metal clasp representing a kite shield. Grimlan opened his eyes to find that this vision was no work of his imagination. He found himself in this new armor tied with this shield clasp. He looked over to see Monk Ryu, now standing at his side gazing down at the grassy glade where the city stood. Grimlan, Warden of Farrador, you have some work to do, the monk called out. Right. Where do I start? Grimlan asked patiently. With how this all started, with your people, Ryu replied and smiled. Grimlan looked around to find some sort of ledge that would lead him back to the base of the mountain. Ryu interrupted his search and said, You know how to return. Search deep and you will find your way. Grimlan walked to the other side of the peak and gazed down. In the distance, he could see his people resting and replenishing their energy. Right, but how do I... Grimlan was returned. He returned his view to the monk, but he found no one. The monk had vanished. He shook his head and returned his view to the people. In an instant, he felt light as a feather. He walked over to a boulder on the ledge, climbed it, and stepped off. Slowly and elegantly, Grimlan floated the few feet back down to the peak's floor. He gave a grin and walked back to the ledge, overseeing his people. With a strong kick, Grimlan leapt off the ledge and floated down to his people as if he were a feather, caught by the perfect wind. Grimlan landed just in front of his family, who had risen to their feet to watch him descend. Would you stop showing off? Anna cried out. For the moment, no, Grimlan replied, quite sarcastically. The citizens of Milford rose and gathered around the boy and his family. Grimlan began to speak. What we have been through has been more than any one person deserves in a lifetime of strife. But we have done it together. Building a future here will not be easy, nor do I understand fully how to do it. I've seen a glade just on the other side of the mountain. Rivers course through it, and the mountains create a natural barrier between us and those who would do us harm. We can form our new settlement there. What will we call it, oh wise leader? Anna called out. What about McIntyre? After your family name, a citizen proposed. The rest of the citizens of Milford spoke out in agreement. The young ranger smiled at them and nodded. Grimlan, of House McIntyre, turned to his family and simply said, Let's get to work. All right, take a pause right here. So this is like the founding hero, I guess, of this land of Farrador. There's one other shorter story that we have here about Irinar. Thanks those of you that are stopping out here tonight for a little introduction to Farrador. And in just a moment, we're going to do some character creation too. This is a solo adventure that I'll be streaming here on the channel. So if this is your first time stopping by, definitely give us a follow. And I'd invite you to come stop by in our Discord server as well. I'll throw the link into the chat here. We play a lot of D&D here on 20 Sides Every Story. We have open games that you can join. We have a community campaign that I think we've got like 40 some players running around in, and that's always an open opportunity. So definitely stop by the Discord so you can get to know our group and maybe even join us in a game. Planet Buster, I am fighting off a food coma here, but listening. Okay, we've only got a little bit more of this backstory stuff, and then we'll get into how does the solo adventure work. All right. So the events of the unknown. The story of Irinar the Vile is that of misfortune and melancholy. Our research has been able to reveal many truths about his life. However, I am remiss to report we may never know the full story. I have pieced together first-hand accounts and journal entries to surmise the story of his life. It seems a series of tragic misfortunes led him down a path of no return. If you have not completed your adventures in Farrador, it is best to come back to this story later on. Oh, maybe we don't want to read this part, is what it's sounding like. Maybe, maybe we will do this another time, because it sounds like this is maybe a part of the solo adventure, so we maybe don't want to spoil it. But so then chapter 3 of this book gives you sort of some details about some of the locations. Why don't we I just want to read maybe like the city, because we just got we understand now that there's like this big city that was settled here in this world, so it might be kind of helpful to know that type of stuff. So the first one that they have listed here is the great city of Mackendire. Mackendire is the capital city of Farrador. Most trade and travelers pass to and from the city at least once while adventuring through the land. Mackendire has a population of about 4,000 citizens who live within or around the outskirts. These citizens find work either in the city or in the rich ore mines along the mountainside. The population is predominantly human. However, Mackendire is seen as a melting pot. It would not be uncommon to find any race within the city's walls. And it looks like they've got like some of the quadrants of the city. There's like 4 districts, so we read that too. Trade Town. The first section of Mackendire to speak on is Trade Town. Most visitors stick to this quadrant. Any common good that you can imagine can be found here. A plethora of inns, taverns, performers, armorers, banks, auction centers, and more can also be found. And then here's a location, Charlie's Still. Often voted the best restaurant in Mackendire and Farrador as a whole. The city has approached the restaurant's owner on many occasions and asked that it move to Pennington's Park. However, Charlie would rather stick to his roots and stay with the people he loves. Country folk from Farrador travel an entire day just to have a meal at the warm and welcoming tavern. It serves excellent comfort food from the southern regions of the world and most delicious drinks from Mackendire all the way to Myth Alar, the land of the elves.
Thanks for the raid. I'm Butterbean.
Oh, we just got a raid here from Goodman Games Official. Hey, everybody. Wow, 28 viewers. Thanks for stopping by. I got to give you a little background here. Hope you guys are having a good game. What we're doing here. For the jams, man! Whoa, and thank you for the cheer, Albinosaurus Jones. Mr. Chris Jones here is gonna have to get a little bad boy song here. Doing here is this is a book called Into the Unknown is the adventure. It's a solo adventure. They've got 3 versions. This is a Kickstarter. I think they put this Kickstarter out last year, and obviously it got funded because I'm holding on to it. But I got this, my friend got this for me at GaryCon. 3 versions of the book you can get. There's the 5th edition version, basic expert rules set, which is what I've got in my hands. That's what I'm going to be doing. And they've got a version for swords and sorcery as well. So I was thinking I was going to do this solo adventure on the stream using, I was going to use old school essentials and build out an old school character, with the chat maybe helping me out. The layout of the book is very much like, if you remember like reading like, you know, choose your own adventure types of prompts, it's like that. Like each little section of the book, there's obviously like if you're in like a dungeon area, there's like a full dungeon map, but it'll show you like just like one room at a time, so you're not spoiled. Like you don't get spoiled at what the like next areas are, and you kind of hop around. And yeah, this is very cool. I'm very excited to get started. So what we've been just doing is when I bought the book, the company also is Pace Setter Games. They also give you like a little I guess kind of booklet that gives you some history and some lore, some backstory. So we did that. We kind of learned about like kind of the founding character, like the heroic kind of mythic character that founded this region. And now we're just kind of reading a little bit about kind of the big city that we just learned that he founded. So, great city of McIntyre. So we were just reading about Charlie's Still. It seems like it's maybe a well-respected tavern in McIntyre. Country folk from Farrador travel an entire day just to have a meal at this warm and welcoming tavern. It serves excellent comfort food from the southern regions of the world and the most delicious drinks from McIntyre all the way to Mythalar, the land of the elves. Charlie himself is a staple of the community, along with his magnificent staff. Charlie is the founder and owner of this establishment. He was seeking a place where all could come and share in the simple joys of life. He can often be found buzzing around the restaurant, checking on patrons, reminiscing with old friends, and even concocting the most divine drinks. His presence truly makes Charlie's. I can't help but think like this guy is like Charlie Day running around in this like the Paddy's pub of McIntyre. Charlie surrounds himself with the highest quality staff McIntyre has seen. Okay, that immediately throws that illusion out the window. His right hand at any time of day or night is a fine gentleman named Anthony. He is nicknamed Vamp for his hard work into the late hours of the night. Vamp is a jack of all trades. No task is too difficult or beneath this strapping young lad. A young scholar named Chase handles food operations within Charlie's Still. Chase is a fan favorite among the customers. His diligence is well noted, and he is often described as the bridge between the kitchen staff and the servers. Chase is also a cleric in training. He wishes to one day soon save the lives of his fellow citizens. The staff has endless talent. Monica is known for being the kindest bartender whom many chat with as they enjoy their meals. Jordan is an attentive server who is always one step ahead of even the patrons. The list goes on and on. Let's see. I always seem to come in midway through, and this one, Alex is on even better. Awesome. Thanks for stopping by. And another location at Trade Town, Garen's Goods. If a mundane item is needed, you can find it at Garen's, a popular general goods store in Farrador. If your character needs to purchase a common good from your system's rulebook, you may do so at Garen's. The prices are the same as they appear in the rulebook. Hey, Chris, how are you doing tonight? Almost ready to start rolling up a character in just a moment here. So, Garen's Goods. Probably we'll have to stop there tonight. If we're going to gear up our character, we'll have to buy some stuff. You get to roll randomly for gold pieces. There's no starting equipment set in OSE, so... next location is National Bank of Farrador. This is the longest standing bank in Farrador. Since so few people use the bank for anything other than currency exchange, National Bank of Farrador rarely has any competition. As directed by the city, they do not charge fees on conversions. However, if you wish the bank to hold your money, it costs 5 gold pieces to assign you a vault, then 2 gold pieces every month for upkeep. Hanging in, got back a little earlier from the trip to Ohio. Okay, hope you had a good trip. Was that a? I don't remember. Was that that personal trip that you had to make? Hope that went okay. Oh, a wedding. Okay. Well, hopefully it was fun. Weddings can be fun. Allcraft Armory. Allcraft Armory is one of the more unique armorers in the kingdom. Generally, you have to go to a blacksmith for weapons and heavy armor, a clothier for robes, or a leather worker for leathers. However, Allcraft, they do it all. Anytime your character needs new weapon or armor, they can find it at Allcraft. And then there's the Wonderland Inn. Wonderland Inn is known for taking in adventurers who are on assignment from Farrador Keep at a modest price. It is a moderate inn with plenty of amenities, which makes it feel luxurious without the steep price. You may rest at Wonderland Inn for a single gold piece per night. Divine District. This quadrant of Mekandire is home to worshippers of the gods, primarily the Olympians. While plenty of taverns, inns, and homes are found here, most visitors come to visit the Temple of the Gods. This was the thing I was kind of interested in. I wanted to know, like, just in case I roll up a cleric, I wanted to know, like, who are the deities. So it looks like we're going to get a list. Temple of the Gods. The Temple of the Gods is the oldest and most beautiful shrine to the Olympians in all of Farrador. So we use Greek gods. The massive temple has individual shrines for Zeus, Poseidon, Hera, Demeter, Athena, Artemis, Apollo, Aphrodite, Ares, Hermes, Dionysus, and even Hestia and Hades. If your character donates to charity or performs downtime activities in a holy setting, they may be performed in the Temple of the Gods. Maybe I need to, like, bust out Hades and start playing it again so I can get reaccumulated with all these gods. Then there's the Arcane Quarter. This place is as it sounds. Many magical practices are performed here. You can find alchemy shops, magical item stores, artificial exhibits, museums, homes, and even the Mekandire Mages College. This area is the premier location for magic outside of Farrador Keep. And another location within the district, Kizzywink's Exotic Emporium of Gallant Goods. The owner of this store goes by the name of Kizzywink. He is a young, high elven male who ended up with a large fortune after he inherited his family business in Myth Elar. So it must be an elf. Kizzywinks, I was thinking it was maybe be a gnome, but Myth Elar is the elf place. Kizzywink, yes. He had no interest in running a shipyard, however, so he left the business to an uncle to manage and came to Mekandire. He used his fortune to create a place where adventurers could buy, sell, or trade magical items. It is unlikely that your character will amass enough wealth to purchase magic items during the campaign. However, it is entirely likely that you come across an item that your character cannot or will not use. For example, a wizard might come across a magical sword that offers little or no value. You may go to Kizzywinks and trade it for a similar item of that rarity. In other words, uncommon for uncommon, rare for rare, etc. Okay, that's good to know. And then there is Pennington's Park. Once named the Noble Quarter, Pennington's Park is named after the great Percy Pennington, an original founder of Mackinac. Percy was known for always seeking the beauty in life, so a park was constructed 100 years ago in honor of his legacy as a founder. The city also renamed this quadrant Pennington's Park. Aside from the homes of nobles and relatively wealthy individuals, Pennington's Park does not offer much value to an adventurer. If your character would like to take a relaxing stroll in the park, they may. Sometimes you just gotta soak it in. You gotta stop to smell the flowers. And then there's Hearthhelm. Hearthhelm is the pinnacle of Farrador. A few estates are here for members of the High Council. However, all pale in comparison to Hearthhelm. This is the dwelling of Queen Hestia of Mackinac. The unique aspect of the castle is that the gates are generally open. Hestia requires this as she welcomes all people from all walks of life to seek her counsel in times of need. It is possible that you will be called to have an adventure at Hearthhelm. Ooh. And I think we will read one more. We should read about Farrador Keep, which is, you can see, kind of at the top of my screen here. So we'll read about that, and then we'll move into character creation. Farrador Keep. Farrador Keep is the pinnacle of adventuring schools. Students come from far and wide to learn more about ancient magic, martial fighting, curing the wounded, and much more. I guess while you're out there, if you're going to stick around to help me with character creation, just realize I'm going to ask you for help with that. So, be thinking about what classes you think would be kind of cool. Anything from Old School Essentials Basic Fantasy is in play. So that would include fighter, wizard, thief, cleric, and then, elf, dwarf, and halfling. But we could also consider anything from the advanced rules, which I can go over what all those things are, but that's going to introduce more things like the acrobat, the assassin, the bard, the barbarian, druid, knight, illusionist, some of those. And there are some bonus ones from the setting as well, including we could make a what are the options? The bonus options were a Baijo dwarf, an elemental ranger, so we could be like that main character that we just read about. Or the Fin folk, which is like a fish person. So, things to think about. Alright, Farrador Keep. It's an adventuring school. That's interesting. So maybe that's where our character is going to come from. Students come from far and wide to learn more about ancient magic, martial fighting, curing the wounded, and much more. Students are accepted at the age of 14 and stay at the keep for 4 years while they learn more about their specific school. Upon entry into the school, the initiates are sorted into one of 4 schools to train in a discipline. The keep's 4 main categories are fighters, mages, clerics, and rangers. There are specializations under each, however. Paladins study with the fighters and cleric schools. Rogues study with the rangers and fighters, sometimes mages as well for illusion magic. Bards often train in all 4, and so on. During their 4 years at the school, the students from their very first adventuring parties form their own adventuring parties to run the fabled Gauntlet during their final year. The Gauntlet is a series of missions in a timed, controlled setting to determine the worthiest adventurers. This may include the simulated battle, discerning ancient writing to solve a puzzle, disabling traps, warding the undead, etc. Anything that could arise while adventuring is tested. Farrador Keep even has ways to simulate the different planes of existence in their basement. The adventuring party that completes the Gauntlet with the best score becomes the sponsored adventurers of the city of McIntyre right away. The others are sent off to find work on their own accord. It is possible that graduates may choose to adventure alone. In this case, the highest scorers adventure for McIntyre as well. However, it is tradition to accept your first quest from the keep itself to pay back the knowledge that you have learned. Graduates of Farrador Keep are always welcome back with open arms. They are the land's finest, of course. Many of the professors are alumni. After a life of adventuring, they all agree that returning home to enjoy the little things in life is often undervalued. The guard towers. So it's got like a little town within its keep. So the guard towers, not much can be said about the 3 primary guard towers of Farrador. The land is not often overrun with agents of evil, so the guard towers primarily serve as checkpoints for merchants traveling in and out of the city. Many merchants initially pass through River Guard, as they use the High Reach River for transport. The others use a merchant pass through the mountains and valleys north of McIntyre. The East Road is often not traveled, as the land of Mogboldar is less than inviting for weary travelers. Coalfield Farmstead. Kizzy time. The largest farmstead in all of Farrador belongs to the Coalfield family. These descendants of Ewen and Arya Coalfield have been tending to the land's crops for Farrador's entire existence. They are responsible for the largest harvest every midsummer. These crops feed the majority of people in Farrador. They have a great stock of cattle for butchering as well. Since the magic folk of the Mages College of McIntyre have discovered ways to artificially create food, the farmstead has been under less pressure to feed as many mouths as possible. However, they keep their pride as a pivotal part of Farrador's success. Bone Mass? I don't know. Bone Mass might be a custom monster. I don't want to spoil it, but we might be able to do that. Mistwood. See, Mistwood is in the middle of the screen here. The town of Mistwood is a humble village. Half the residents either work in the inn, the general store, or the shrine, while the other half work in McIntyre, Farrador Keep, a surrounding farm, or Lake Haven. The economy of Mistwood is relatively dependent on travelers spending their coin in town. However, McIntyre gives the village great tax relief as it is the oldest village in Farrador. They want to preserve it like an artifact of the realm. Sword and Spell Inn. Galland Lightbrook, a middle-aged human, and his wife Yana, a middle-aged half-elf, own this notable inn and tavern. The Sword and Spell has been the go-to inn for travelers and adventurers since Farrador was pieced together. It is not uncommon for the students of Farrador Keep to venture south for an entertaining and relaxing night out. The locals adore their patronage, as their visits bolster the economy and the locals feel safe in the presence of such skilled warriors. Plus, the bards of the keep always put on a fantastic show. If your character stays at the inn during the adventure, the cost is 2 gold pieces per night. Millie, Galland, and Yana's daughter, operates a small kitchen. Galland can be found behind the bar, tending to patrons every night. Ooh, and they've got a little Sword and Spell Inn menu here. Gent's General Store. Gent Goldbender left his life of nobility in Mythalar to have a quiet and humble life. This high elf cultivates a fine selection of goods for the locals, travelers, and adventurers. Coming from a family of vast wealth working in the gold industry, Gent is no stranger to harsh negotiations. However, he wields his golden tongue only against greedy merchants attempting to profit off the central location of Mistwood. He can often be seen masterfully persuading merchants into lower prices so he may best serve the community of Mistwood and Farrador. To buy goods from Gent, consult your game system's guide of mundane adventuring supplies. Since you're an adventurer doing good by the realm, Gent offers you a 10% discount while you're doing work that benefits Farrador. Oh shit, we should go see this guy. We can get a discount! And we probably won't have much gold to start off with, so 10% sounds good. They also have a Temple of the Gods, the second oldest shrine to the Olympians. Oh, and here we can find the Fountain of Hera. A beautiful fountain mimicking the goddess Hera, presenting a staff to the heavens, can be found in the center of Mistwood. The original founders of Mistwood thought Hera the best candidate of the statue, as she is the goddess of family. They believed the gods and family to be of the utmost importance in life. If you toss a gold coin in the fountain, your character has a 20% chance of coming under one magical effect. If you are not blessed, you may try again 24 hours later. You can benefit from this blessing only once per day. Oh, the blessings are pretty good too. 4 temporary hit points for you roll a d6 if you do 4 temporary hit points, +1 to saving throws. A 3 is a +1 to hit. 4 is +1 to all damage. +1 to armor class. Number 6 is a bless spell for 12 hours. So, for an old OSE character, any one of those things would be pretty. Yeah, our character needs to go to Mistwood before they go adventuring for sure. Just throw a copper piece in and you're good to go. So I think that's probably as far as we need to go in this book. There is definitely like more, stuff that we could dig into, but a lot of it's probably like we can look it up as needed. So I'm gonna take just like a 2-minute break, and then we'll get. All right, and we are back. Hope you're all doing well this evening. We just got through learning a little bit about the world of Farrador, and now I think we are going to move basically into character creation. Before we make the character, though, I want you all to be on the same page as me in terms of how does the solo quest system work. So I've got the PDF of the rulebook that I'm going to be popping up here on the screen, and we can kind of go through some of this information together. Then y'all can help me build out this character that we will use for the Into the Unknown solo adventure. So the solo system. Adventuring solo is not an ordinary practice for many. It presents a different array of challenges that normal RPGs do not fall victim to. I'm actually, let's change up the music here. I was really digging some of that, retro wave stuff we were listening to during the 80s game, so I gotta find that playlist. There we go. This outlines tips on how to adventure, rules to modify or keep in mind, and recommendations on how to go about mapping, resting, hirelings, experience, death, etc. We will also introduce the idea of adventure points to help your character overcome great threats. Your character starts with a new stat called Adventure Points. Your character has a number of Adventure Points equal to their character level. Each time you gain a level, you add an amount of Adventure Points equal to your new level. For example, second level character has Adventure Points 3. Okay, 1 adventure point at first level, and then 2 additional adventure points at second level. The adventurer advances to third level, gains 3 adventuring points. If your character has not used any adventure points, they would now have a total of 6. They are not regenerated by rest. When used, they are gone until you gain more by level advancement. Adventure points are used as a mulligan. If your character fails a specific die roll, you can spend 1 adventure point to change the die roll to match the desired required result. This can be done for saving throws, attack rolls, skill checks, and finding a secret door, etc. Also, an adventure point can be used to grant a reroll at any time for such things as damage rolls, hit point generation, etc. Furthermore, you can use an adventure point to alter a described result. So that's sort of our reroll mechanic, or if we really don't want to fail something, we can use that. Character creation. Creating your character is a process unique to each player, party, or game master. However, for this solo adventure, it is recommended you refer to your own game version of standard character creation rules. Okay. Yeah, there's new classes and races. Here, I can skip to the end here. We can look at them. So there's the Baiju Dwarf. Uncommon race of dwarves is a close cousin to those that reside within the mountains. Once a sturdy, formidable people, they have now turned to the more elegant side of life. They found a wealth of gems and other minerals in their mines. They now prefer to focus on the fighter side of life. They're agile and have a dexterity score of 10 plus 1d8. Okay, and then there's the Finn folk. So those are options. And then we got new subclasses. Elemental Ranger. So that's kind of like our character from the intro there. And then there's the Path of the Ruined Seeker Barbarian. So it's a subclass of fighter, so you have to be a fighter to get that. I think we'd have to be a fighter. Oh, it'd probably be a ranger for Elemental Ranger. Okay, so that's that. Those are the new things that we could choose. Difficulty modes. Into the Unknown is separated into two distinct modes of play, story mode and hard mode. Each presents a different style of play. Rangers could be fun to play, especially, yeah, an old school ranger. They're pretty good. And that is an option from our old school essentials. So story mode. Story mode is for those who prefer to simply enjoy the story with some dice rolling and challenges along the way. At specific points in the book, you will be able to add companions to your party. This will make the encounters a little less deadly if you just intend on enjoying the book slowly. It also helps out those wizards, magic users, casters to have a meat shield or two. Hard mode. Hard mode is where you adventure true solo. No hirelings, henchmen, or companions. This is for those wanting the true solo challenge. I don't know. I like the idea of having hirelings just because hirelings are such a key thing in old school, so whatever. We're going to do story mode. Companions. As mentioned before, there are opportunities to acquire companions throughout the campaign. If a companion is stumbled upon via the story, any character, no matter the mode, may acquire them. If a companion is offered between quests, then a player may acquire them in story mode. When companions are offered between quests, the character will have a choice of 3. You may choose only one companion at a time. Later, you will have a choice to gain another. You may have a maximum of only 2 companions at any given moment. If you have one that you would like to swap out, you may do so by returning to the quest giver. A total of 10% of the adventuring earnings must be paid to each member of your party. The companions do not progress in levels as you do. They remain at their power level from the point at which you find them to the point at which you complete the adventure. You are essentially a first level character at very base power level. This is to ensure that you, the hero, still shine above all. Okay. So we could have up to 2 people that we could add in here at some point. So that's cool. Combat. Combat is the most interesting aspect of a solo adventure. Since there is no game master, the duties of controlling the environment and monsters fall on you, the player. You will control the monsters you encounter along the way, as well as determine any other outcomes a game master would normally handle. The most important note here is that you are your own moderator. The AP system was designed so that you should not feel the need to cheat the system or metagame. I'm sure you guys will keep me in check with that, right? Tell me if something I'm making the monster do doesn't make sense or isn't the optimal thing. Spellcasters. It is no secret that spellcasters are weaker in solo scenarios than fighter types. They have fewer hit points, lower AC, and struggle in melee combat. It is recommended that if you are to play a spellcaster, try story mode first and recruit a single tank. It is also recommended that you ignore any rules that put penalties for casting spells in melee range. Well, we're not going to do that, right? Also, if a monster has a ranged weapon or attack, have them use that against you instead of the melee attacks. Some may see this as a scapegoat, but at the end of the day, the goal is to have fun. These are simple quality of life recommendations, okay? Monsters. New monsters are noted, okay? Fleeing combat. This is probably important. I'm sure you'll have to flee at least once. Some scenarios will come up where your character may want to flee from a battle they cannot handle. For the utmost challenge of this adventure, do not abuse this feature. After all, character death is a part of the game. However, if you do find yourself stacked against odds you know you cannot handle at this time, you may flee. There are some restrictions to this mechanic. You may not flee if your movement is lower than the monster's movement. So if we're bogged down with plate armor, we might not be able to make it, right? If you flee and continue the storyline as if you were victorious, you do not collect the rewards from your quest giver. If you return to the area from which you fled, roll 2 wandering monster checks on the respective table as you journey back. Okay. Character death. Dealing with the death of a character in any game is a painful experience. While Farrador is an upbeat and exciting region of adventure, there is still the possibility of a character may not survive. The standard is that if a character is defeated in battle or by a poor story decision, you must roll a new character and start from the beginning. This is especially the expectation for hard mode. However, if you're playing story mode and are defeated, you can consider starting again from the beginning of your most recent chapter. Think of this as a save point in a video game. Okay. Milestone leveling, got it. When a magic item is found, a bond is formed between the item and the adventurer. The character immediately knows the qualities of that item and how to use it. If treasure such as gems, jewelry, etc. is found within an adventure, you must wait to add the value in gold pieces to your character sheet until you sell said items. In the Appendix 4 treasure, you can find the values associated with each treasure. If there is no value immediately following the treasure in the text, you can find the value in the appendix. Resting in the field. Your character may find it vital to rest in the field rather than returning to the inn. If your character performs a long rest at a detailed location, any numbered location, you must roll for a wandering monster a total of 3 times. Checks are at dusk, midnight, and dawn. Okay. Okay. I think those are the main things I wanted to know. I just wanted to know, like, how does, yeah, character death and stuff like that work. So let's pull up our character sheet here. So it's just an old school essentials character sheet that I got from necroticgnome.com. And I think it's time. So, we got to rule. The first thing you do with character creation in old school essentials is it's 3d6 down the line for ability scores. So the stuff at the top, we can fill in level. We're level 1. But we got to do ability scores before we can figure out a class. So maybe we'll roll those ability scores and see what we come up with, and we can brainstorm appropriate classes, and then I'll create a poll and let you guys vote on what we should roll up here. So here we go. Got the dice in hand. Oh, we're off to a solid start. 7 for strength. Oh, that's pretty good. 16 for intelligence. We're gonna end up with the wizard. That's really bad. 5. Dexterity. Okay, so 13 for dexterity. Oh my god, that's really good. He's got a 15 con. And then a 10 for charisma. Man. Yeah, 5 isn't great. What is that? That might be a -2. It's probably a -2, yeah. Okay, so we have to figure out what kind of character are we looking at here? I think wizard is definitely in play with the intelligence. I did a poll on Twitter to see what I should make, and like a lot of people voted for thief, I think. And I don't know, this could be a thief. Because it got the dexterity, and I don't know. I would say it's in play. Yeah, the strength would be a -1. Intelligence would be a +2. I think the con is probably a +1. I think 16 is where it goes to +2. So it goes like this. Score of a 3 is going to be a -3. A 4 to 5 is -2. A 6 to 8 is -1. 9 to 12 is no modifier. 13 to 15 is +1. 16 to 17 is +2. And then 18 would be a +3. So the other thing we can look at would be some of the advanced classes. Like acrobat, maybe? Acrobats are trained in skills of balance, gymnastics, and stealth. They often work in conjunction with thieves and may belong to a thieves' guild. Be an assassin. Assassins are adventurers who specialize in the art of infiltration and killing by stealth. They sometimes form guilds whereby their illicit services may be hired. Probably not barbarian. We could be a bard. I'm gonna put bard on the list, maybe. Not druid. Could be an illusionist. Probably not a knight. Probably not a... No, ranger's out. Well, I'm thinking it's between wizard, thief, bard, or illusionist. If you have other suggestions, call them out into the chat. Or you can tell me to re-roll. Well, so we could Road Killer just redeemed by a player reroll. Okay, we could do that. Boom. All right. But these go away. We might get worse results, right? All right, here we go. 3d6 down the line. Okay, it's a 12 for strength. So far, so good. It's a 10. $13 for con. Awesome. That'll help with hit points. And a 13 for charisma. Oh, I don't know. This guy could really be anything. I think with that intelligence, we could, you know, wizard is probably still a good option. We could still do illusionist. I'll just put wizard down for now. I guess, I don't know. What other options should I put on my list? Well, I will go with the options here. So I'm going to start the poll. I don't know if it's working. Hey, Net1Fun, thank you for the tip. I popped out. I'll check out Net1Fun. They were doing this. I was hanging out with Arthur Yes, you did. You did. You didn't have to do that, but they were doing like this a Jeopardy like kind of D&D. There were some video game questions too. Jeopardy thing on Saturday when I was hanging out with Arthur here, and it was very enjoyable to listen to. So you go check them out and give them a follow. That was a lot of fun. Okay, this isn't working at all, is it? Let's try this again. Wizard, thief, bard, illusionist, and I'll throw a fighter on there just so we have a martial class to consider. Maybe I have to... I thought I set this up. Oh, I see what I have to do. Sorry. Okay, is anybody seeing a poll on the screen currently? Maybe? No live poll. Okay. Let's try this. Let's try it one more time. This is like the official like Twitch app too. Like why isn't it working? All right. Wizard, thief, bard. I'm more or less just trying this out because this is how I was gonna. This is the platform I was gonna use for making decisions in the game when we actually do it. So if this doesn't work, then I need to find a different one. Okay. All right, this managed poll thing is junk. It's not working. Let me try one more thing. No, I don't like that either. Yeah, I thought this was the same one that I'd used before. Oh well. Just throw your answer in the chat. What you think we should make? What kind of class? We'll give it a few minutes here to see as people type in. Things I was considering, I mean, you could put anything in the chat, but things I was thinking would be good options would be wizard, thief, or bard, or illusionist. All right, 2 votes for wizard, 3rd for wizard. All right, we'll just give it another minute or so. If you got votes for what character class we should choose, go ahead and type it in the chat. I put up a poll on my Twitter. How did that turn out? I think I had like, it was like a tie between thief and cleric. Well, I don't want to do cleric with this one. All right. Basically, it looks like wizard is the prevailing thought here, so wizard it is. All right. Do we have any thoughts on alignment? We can choose lawful, neutral, or chaotic. Yeah, I agree. It'd be a shame to let that 14 go to waste, right? Well, I'm gonna not see it. Neutral or chaotic? Yeah, I was thinking maybe neutral. And I'll let you guys think of names while we move on to the next part. So we could adjust these ability scores. So we can raise the prime requisite of our character by lowering other non-prime requisites. For every 2 points by which an ability score is reduced, 1 point may be added to a prime requisite. Okay. No score may be lowered below 9. So, we could bring strength down to 10 to add a +1. And we could bring our wisdom down to 9 to give a +1. That would bring us to 16. That would get us to like the +2. And I'm kind of thinking, why not? Because these are zeros right now. So we can, it will kind of be no consequence, right? We can make this a 16. I'm going to do that. Now we have to roll hit points, which is always something that hurts as a wizard. So I'm pretty sure wizard is D4. Yep, D4. All right, here we go. Wish me luck. Hey, we got a 4. And Constitution is a 13, so it's actually 5. That's pretty sweet. Yeah, unfortunately, Charisma we can't. It has to be Strength, Intelligence, or Wisdom. Otherwise, definitely, like, Charisma isn't too useful probably for this scenario. All right. So we did hit points, chose alignment. Let's see. Known languages. Your character's class determines their native languages. This always includes the common tongue and the character's alignment language. Characters with high intelligence may also choose additional languages from the list of languages available in the setting. Okay. I think we'll just roll randomly for this. So basically, because I got a 16, I'm going to get 2 bonus languages. Where do I put that? I'll just put it here. Additional languages. Roll a d20. I rolled an 18. which is orcish. Makes sense for the setting. We just learned about orcs. And what's the other one? Gnomish. Maybe we learned Gnomish during our studies. It's probably Gnomish magic and such. So that makes sense. I'm good with that. Alright, the next thing would be buying equipment, which I can do probably off stream, but I have to roll my gold pieces. So I get 3d6 times 10 gold pieces. Not too bad. Rolled an 11. Probably don't need as much gold as a wizard either. So I'm starting out with 110 gold pieces. I don't know. Is there somewhere I'm not seeing like gold? Kind of feels like there should be a box for that somewhere. Oh, there's a box for languages. Well, I guess where I put it is fine for now. Yeah, I don't know. That's where I put it. I put it in unencumbering items. It's just gold is such an important, integral part to old school that I'm surprised it doesn't have its own box. So, I don't know. That's okay. Let's see. Where are we at with names? Do we have any good names? That's a good point. EXP is how you get gold. Typically. It won't be in our case in the solo adventure, but yeah, if you were actually playing it straight, you would. We do get a bonus to EXP because our prime requisite is the intelligence. So we're going to get a plus 10%. I can't put it in there because this stupid thing keeps getting in my way. There we go. 10%. Again, not going to matter because it's milestone leveling, but... Okay, we got a lot of lizard, gizzard, slizzard. Wisdom, the not wise wizard. I'm wondering how many names that rhyme with wizard you can come up with. Terry? Yes, the heroic Terry. Schultz Bojingles. Dingle Dangle. I was gonna say, you guys have to remember I have to play this character for a while, but I wouldn't put it past you all to create characters with these names. So these are all like funnel names. Alistar? I like that. I mean, Schultz isn't a terrible name. Honcho? Oh, it's not Alistar, it's Alatar. Alatar. Maybe I'll see, does Streamlabs have a polling option? Oh, it sure does. Let's try that. Maybe that's what I used during Witchlight. Alright, let's try this out. What should our character name be? What was some of the other ones? We had... I'm only going to add the ones that I'm willing to do. Let's see. Andrew the Forgotten. Okay, I'll put that one just because I think that's funny. Well, we got Tio. Tio, okay. Oh, Alatar was one of Tolkien's blue wizards. Oh, no, Alatar's a good name. Senzarl? Alright. I'm gonna guess we've got... Oh, Senzar. Oops. Okay. Okay. So... How do I do this? I think I've got to put it give me 2 seconds. We can make this work. should be, in just a matter of moments, a poll that will pop up on the screen. That work? There we go. Harvey Allen. I think that one's in play right now, so I think we're good. So basically the command is exclamation point vote and then your selection. So for Alatar, it'd be exclamation mark vote and then Alatar. If you want Andrew, exclamation mark Andrew, exclamation mark Tio, exclamation marks, exclamation mark vote, space Tio, exclamation mark vote, space Senzar. Okay, why isn't it working? I mean, it's fine because I can see what you're voting for, but I want to get this to work for when I do this. Let me try. Vote. I'm gonna have to figure this out, but it looks like people want Tio, unless there's another vote for Alatar that comes up. The chat really wants like a Breaking Bad crossover here into the solo adventure. Somehow I don't think Tio is a wizard. Well, I think we're going to combine these two names. Well, his name will be Tio Alatar. Now the thing is cleared out. So, all right. Well, we tried. We'll get that to work before the adventure part. So we got Uncle Al, Uncle Tio Alatar. So cool. We need to figure out his spell though. Well, I can think about that because I don't know. I take sleep, right? Like the sleep spell. I think I get to choose. I feel like at level 1 you always had to take sleep. Yeah, we're gonna get sleep. There is a list. Although I don't know if I have it in PDF form on the screen. Oh, I could get it up, though. Let's see. Spells. Where do I have spells? Magic. Only one. Yes, at level 1 you only get one spell. That's gonna be rough. I hope Tio can live. Let's see, first level spells. So, Charm Person. Sorry. Oh. Some pretty cool art in the books here, as you can see. They use some of the same artists that Goodman Games uses. Yeah, Charm Person, Detect Magic, Floating Disc. Yeah, these are the PDFs of the... Yep, exactly. I did the Kickstarter. Hold Portal. Read Magic. Sleep. Shield. Or Ventriloquism. These are second level spells. So... yeah, sleep is by far the best spell. I mean, obviously, like, as time goes on, you want to get more of these, but... it lasts for 44 turns, where a turn represents 10 minutes. Can put to sleep a total of 2d8 hit dice of creatures. Well, I don't think there's much more to choose, so thanks for all of you who hung out here, listened to some of this backstory, and helped me throw this character together. I'm looking forward to getting to playing this. Yeah, probably... we'll have to see. We'll have to see what the schedule allows for me to put this on, but probably start at the end of the month on, like, Sundays. Because we got the next 2 Sundays are going to be, or next Sunday will be Secrets of the Sphinx. And the Sunday after that is Father's Day, so I probably won't want to stream there. So probably on the 26th, I think, is when I'm going to get this on the schedule. So if you want to see how the adventure plays out, I'll pull out some of the Dwarven Forge I've got. We'll play with some minis, and we'll have a great time. So stop by for that. Throw the schedule up on the screen here for the rest of the things we got going on this week. Stop by on Wednesday, 7 p.m. DM Dave running Dragonlance Rise of the Magistrate. Thursday night, we got Tragic Sides to Every Story. Come see the conclusion of Doki Doki Literature Club. It was a lot of fun to watch that last week with Joe. Friday, we get to see what happens with the next crop of characters in DCC RPG. The Original Adventures Reincarnated number 7 preview, Secrets of the Sphinx. Saturday night, we got Storm King's Thunder with Casey. And Sunday, OAR number 7 preview for the 5th edition group. So thanks, everybody. So if this is your first time stopping by the channel, go ahead and give us a follow. Stop by our Discord server, get to know us, potentially get in a game yourself. And yeah, that's all I've got. So let's see if we've got any friends yet online here. We could maybe go and pass a raid on to. I don't know how many people. Who do we got here? All right, we're gonna go raid Mandy.